Young Nab, baby.
Sad eyes, seeing through the lies, pain in my soul, I'm dodging fake vibes. Two-faced people moving like they true, but I'm still standing tall. I took bullets to the heart. Sad eyes, seeing through the lies, pain in my soul, I'm dodging fake vibes. Two-faced people moving like they true, but I'm still standing tall. I took bullets to the heart. I see sad eyes in the rear view reflecting in my soul. I tried to keep it solid, but I got left in the cold. They smile in my face and they plotting when I turn. I light a candle for trust, watch it flicker, let it burn. I've been up at 5 a.m. writing pain every line, thinking about the ones who said they would hold me down. I've been 10 toes, knife in my back, yeah, it's twisting real slow. Two-faced love, now I'm dodging every blow. I gave them my heart, they traded off for the...
Sad Eyes, the documentary about my life, my music, and my emotions. I've always heard that people can always see the expression through my eyes, but most of the time, I was always frustrated. I was always frustrated about my ideas, about my strategies, and I was frustrated about my personal life that got affected through the music. And most times, I've had ideas, I've had success, I've had failure, and it's all about how you rise up from that failure. February 2024, Valentine's Day. That's when I released my first EP, direct to consumer. I took a chance on myself. I didn't know what I was going to do if I failed or if I was going to go back to streaming. I've always heard direct to consumer was basically about having diehard fans who would just purchase your music or even just get really invested into the artist that they like. I said in the past that I wanted to know if I was in somebody's top 5. I get all these streams from overseas. I'm very appreciative of that. Now, if I can translate those streams from overseas into my own marketing, then that would be better for me. I've had so many top 10s, so many top 5s, just in the UK alone on the radio station. And most times, that took a lot of energy out of me to come up with different ideas, tap into those same emotions that I always found that sometimes if you over saturate your emotions, over show your hand, like your creativeness, sometimes that can be a factor that holds you back. Most pain comes with a lot of success, and most success comes with a lot of pain. I've endured it all. I'm not saying that I'm Iron Man to the struggle, but sometimes you have to go out and put on your full armor, and you have to realize the gift that you have inside. You got to let it grow. You got to let it harvest. Even when sometimes people don't appreciate it. Some people might not cheer you on, but it's okay. That's what I had to learn from age 18 all the way to 30. I had to realize everybody's not going to cheer me on. I had to realize that whatever gift that I have to express it to those who's really happy for me and those who will support me. Sometimes support can be a hindrance because you're expecting it all the time. Not all the time you're going to get the support that you want and you need. And not all the time that you're going to hear that someone is proud of you. A lot of those moments that I could have avoided having those chips on my shoulder if I ever heard I'm proud of you. And sometimes I can get like so many ideas that spark to, I just get really inspired on these beats and melodies. I always come up with my verses really, really quick. Really, really quick. I spent a lot of long days, a lot of long nights trying to find out who I am. trying to find out who DC really is, not just my first and last name initials. Growing up in a city that seems small, but then once you realize you swimming with sharks and you feel like you're the only fish out there in a big old ocean, sometimes you have to become the shark yourself. You have to become the predator because you have to hunt what you kill and you have to eat what you hunt, if that make any sense. And a lot of times I spent those times alone just thinking to myself, what if this never worked out? A lot of depressed nights, a lot of frustration nights for me that I had to endure. I had to learn that I was my own strength in times of my own trouble. I didn't never always plan for the future, but I always knew that I had a vision, that when I finally realized that I was more powerful than I was, I could be more relatable. And when you become more relatable, it's like you basically turn into this powerful person because you tap into those emotions. You go into the dark.
DC on the track.
As an artist, I had to realize that if you wanted something, you had to reach up and grab it because nobody wasn't going to give it to you. Sometimes you need to develop an ego because not all the time you can win everybody's respect. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. A lot of people disliked that I was making music at first. They didn't realize that, this whole time it always been my dream. It started off as a hobby, but I always knew what I wanted to do. And it's just a lot of people was just standing in my way. So I had to eliminate them. I always had to eliminate the competition. Sometimes when you eliminate the competition, sometimes it can feel lonely at the top. But sometimes when you feel like you deserve to be at the top, it's never going to feel lonely. And what I mean by that is like when you say you're the best, you always got to prove that you're the best. No ands, ifs, buts, or maybes. You got to feel it within yourself, within your heart, your soul. You always got to want this passion, this burning desire, because nobody else going to support you. Nobody else going to achieve this dream for you. Sometimes it can feel like a nightmare, but you got to know what you're doing. You got to have courage. You got to have confidence. You got to have self-discipline. I was lacking those things when I decided I wanted to become a musician. Not all the time it felt like it was fair. I lost everything. I won everything. And sometimes I feel like I was achieving both at the same time. Both wins and losses. But those losses really made me who I am as a person. A lot of times I was afraid to look myself in the mirror. A lot of those times it was difficult because I had the passion. But all of a sudden, depression started kicking in. And I always knew that I had to find my way out this rut. I had to dig myself out this hole. And I did it. Oftentimes, it felt like it was hard for me to do. But deep in my soul, I wanted this more than anybody. I didn't care who I had to out-rap. I didn't care who I had to prove myself to just to feel like that I belonged at the top like the rest of these independent musicians. You can say I was just less confident, but I always knew I had this gift inside me. You know, a lot of people try to kill this gift if you got multiple talents. You can't let nobody do that to you. I wish somebody would have told me that. I had to figure that out on my own. And sometimes when you're collaborating with people, you can't let the ego get the best of you. You got to bring your A game all the time. That's why I call myself DC the Boring God. Because when I say DC the Boring God, I'm giving you 1,000%. I'm always going hard. Because at the end of the day, I put my blood, my sweat, my tears into my own music. So when somebody asks me for collaboration, I say yes. A lot of times I finish my verses under 5 minutes. That's because I'm passionate about this. A lot of people ain't. A lot of people ain't passionate like I am. A lot of people don't have a burning desire like I do. And at the end, the burning desire will always win. I always want to be a testimony. Oftentimes, I always think about where I would have been if I never did music, if I wasn't creative, if I wasn't talented. I would be like my dad. A lot of people put this burden on me. You're going to be like your dad. Sins of the father. But you know what? I'm going to rewrite that history. Those losses, those failures, those insecurities, those self-doubts that kept lingering in my head. What if I fail? What if I prove everybody right? What if I prove that I am that statistic? What if I prove that I will always be that small fish in the big ocean? You always got to bounce back. You got to take your losses in stride. That's what I did. I took my mental scars, my emotional scars, and I turned it to all this. Because I always had my mind on greatness. Even when I ain't had nobody to talk to. Even when I felt abandoned and was abandoned by the ones that I care for, by the ones that I love. Except my mom. My mom always been there for me. A lot of times, it felt like I was in this sunken place. A lot of times it felt like I wasn't going to climb my way back out as soon as somebody kicked me down. I had to always rise above my circumstances. I always had to rise above everybody doubting me. I had to prove them all wrong. And that's what made me a self-proclaimed boring God. Because I take everything in stride. I take everything to the chest. I take everything to the heart, the soul. Because I always put 1,000% in whatever I did. And always do. You know, a lot of people ask me, What are my top 5 projects in my catalog? Um, it's really hard for me to say because I did 50 plus projects. So I would say Feelings Bleed 2, Lonely Hours, Paradise Without Rain. Um, it's kind of hard. I'm gonna put some of my mixtapes up there. I will put DC versus Everybody 2. I will put um, what's around here. That's my mixtape, DC versus Everybody 2. I would say Memories to Burn. It wasn't a mixtape, but it was my first double album that I did in 2019. I would say No Fall Off. Like those 5 albums right there, I always felt like I had to prove myself. When you always feel like you got to prove yourself, that's when you make the best quality. A lot of people ask me, how come I don't appreciate Paradise Without Rain 2? It's the second project that I did in 2020 during the pandemic. My first project was Undisputed Era. Undisputed Era, I really had a chip on my shoulder. I started working on it in 2019. I released it in 2020 of January. I remember it like it was yesterday. Sometimes when you feel like you have a chip on your shoulder, that's when you always make the best quality of music. Just my opinion. I would say that's when I began to learn how to be a beat maker. I made several projects that year. I did Icons Don't Sleep. I did a group album with my bro Junior, Official No Labels, In Your Soul. I did Paradise Without Rain 3. I did my first beat mixtape, 8 Summers. And then I ended the year with Paradise Without Rain 3 Deluxe. And I ended it with my beat tape, Universium. I feel like in 2020, with those releases, Paradise Without Rain 2, it get lost behind because I had a whole another version of the album. It was my 7th album. It didn't take off the way that I wanted it to. Things didn't really go as planned because I was in a situation where I think it was just a year of losing for me. I was losing relationships. I was losing friendships. And it just really taught me to just embrace the moments that was good instead of focusing on what was bad, during that time. And as I don't really go back to listen to that album, but it is cohesive because I had a whole complete different feel of the album. It was like happy, cheerful, like it's just like it's in between of happiness, joy, pain, and overall just proving yourself.
Um, One of those favorite tracks on that album is called A Summers, Spare Key, Daydreaming. Like those just like down tempo songs. And Winners Lose. It's like those down tempo songs really really shaped the album to be the way that it can stand on its own. But I always knew that wasn't my best project because I had so many deep feelings. I was hurt. I just came out of a relationship situation and it just took over my mind. It just took everything over. But a lot of things was going on while I was working on that album. I felt like some of the songs can be, you know, they would say unquote commercialized, but I don't think so. I would say Return of Karma was good that I did with my bro Junior. Check Your DM that I did with my bro Junior. I would say Never Forget. Never Forget is one of my biggest songs on Paradise Without Rain 2. It's still getting Shazams to this day. It got over 500 Shazams on Apple Music. That was one of the singles that I did after Undisputed Era. I worked on that song. Every time I think about that song, I get goosebumps because that's just one of my most vulnerable songs that I ever did. It's just like one of them surreal moments for me. Because without the support on that song, I don't know where it would have been. You know, think about, me thinking about that album, Paradise Without Rain 2. It's one of my chart breakers too in the UK, Germany radio, Winners Lose, because I speak about what it's like to lose. Sometimes when you feel like you're winning, you losing at the same time because you feel like it's okay to want to be successful and to have success. But at the same time, you losing those factors of saying, well, I want this so bad. I want to be successful so bad. But you losing family members, you losing friendships because that time and that sacrifice. Without sacrifice, there's nothing. I still feel my goosebumps. Because during this whole time, I sacrificed a lot. I sacrificed a lot of my time, my patience, and it was just a lot of nights where I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was headed. I wanted to be signed so bad. I would say between like when I was age 25, 26, 24, those 3 crucial years, I was always looking for a way out. I thought me eventually earning a deal or working my way to earn a deal would get me out this situation, because sometimes you can rush your own time instead of you just, appreciating, instead of like you appreciating those times and appreciating the grind. You just looking for a way out, just escape. But those hard times mold you into a better person, and that's what I had to realize. I was rushing my time. I was rushing all these projects, but I wasn't being grateful. I wasn't appreciating the fans. I I just wanted so bad to be the top person. And somebody humbled me. Somebody once told me, when you think you've seen the top, that's when you've seen the bottom. I had to appreciate that. I was thinking to myself, yeah, this person was right. Because when you're at the top, you work so hard to achieve everything that you always want to achieve. But at the same time, as your level up, grow up, you get more haters, you get more enemies, friendships get exposed, relationships get exposed. And sometimes those times really test you because everybody folding around you. You don't know where you heading to. You don't know what else can happen. So I feel like those times, it really changed my perspective. The pandemic changed my perspective on how I approach my work ethic. It exposed a lot of relationships. Because sometimes when you want to visualize the future, but in all reality, nobody really knows the future. And me knowing all this now, it really tested my religion. I'm a God-fearing man. Sometimes I feel like I don't give enough time to my religion and my spirituality. But I think this year, as I turn 30 in 2024, I think a lot of my time need to be sacrificed to find myself back to my spirituality, tap into some meditation. I got some books. I got some religion books, spiritual books. And most of all, I got to practice more forgiveness. Because I used to harbor so many feelings in. I used to harbor so much resentment. Those things never got me nowhere. It just made me feel more bitter about myself and my situation. And as I was saying before, my mom, she watched me climb to where I'm at right now. You know, all these, like if you take away all these chart breakers, these number ones, these top tens, I'm still have that grind. You know, it took a lot of time to try to win everybody over. But you can't. Not in all reality. Because those who have an issue with you, that seed that they grow into hating on you, it's going to grow bigger. You just got to grind through it. Not have your mind on it. I know it's easy said than done, but you got to remain who you are. You got to make sure that seed that's growing inside you, it never dies. That root just keep on growing and multiplying. That's what I had to learn. I almost didn't graduate. I talked about this in my book before the documentary. I was going through so much adversity then. I had some neighbors being cowards, just saying all kind of nasty things about my mom behind my back. You know, me doing music helped me to release this pain. Because a lot of people was feeling entitled. Because I felt like me not being around, a lot of people was doing all kind of cowardly things. And I felt like they was only getting away with it because I wasn't there to help my mom because my focus was on graduating from high school, avoiding peer pressure, avoiding temptation. And at the same time, I was losing myself. I had to put on this tough guy persona because I was always picked on in school, elementary school, middle school. I always felt like I was never fitting in. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was custom made. Everybody don't think the same. You know, thinking about those times, I'm glad that I made it through. I'm glad that I pushed through. A lot of people don't know the personal things that I went through in my life. The ups and downs, giving up, almost quitting, to me confusing my own mind. People looking down on me, hating that I did this music. They don't want to listen to me. They don't want to support me. But it's my job to keep this dream alive. It's my job to keep pushing through. I lost my mentor, Bill Thompson. I wrote about him in my book too. He saw me grow up as a kid. My father was never around. That kind of hindered me. My mom, she was my mom and my dad. I grew up with two older sisters and my nephews. Sometimes bonds never last forever. Sometimes people find a crack in those bonds. Because in reality, nothing is ever really solid. It's only temporary. That's all I had to realize. You know, sometimes when I come up with these song concept names, I always focus on the experiences that I had early in my life. So I love collaborating with my bro Junior. We started a group called Officially No Labels. We started in 2015. I was on my mixtape run. When I was on my mixtape run, he been on every one of my projects since. And I'm always grateful for him. I'm glad that we made up. Actually, I was going through some things in my life to where I was just blocking out everybody in my life. And sometimes your ego can mess up a lot of things. Like I was saying earlier. We actually got some good songs coming up. Some singles. We just finished this album. And I feel like on this album, this group album, I'm trying to find the right song. I feel like on this album, my mixing got a whole lot better. I feel like I was more inspired because I faced a lot of writer's blocks. But I'm glad I always pushed through those writing blocks. I really like this song. It's called Go. It will be a single coming up. Okay, so let me just turn this up. It's one of my favorite tracks that I did.
with my bro. It's one of my favorite songs. I like doing relationship theme tracks. A lot of people ask me, why do I tap in so many love concepts and relationship type songs? Because love is what I always had a difficult, I wouldn't say difficult, I would just say like the whole theme of love always had Achilles heel with it. And sometimes I feel like when I write about these different relationship type songs, I feel like it's a void that's loosening within my heart. I never really understood what love meant. I was looking for it in the wrong places. I always had to learn to love myself first, then love will come to me. The hardest lesson is to find out what love really meant. Not all the time that you're going to hear congratulations. You just got to keep doing what you got to do. You got to survive either way. I've been surviving without hearing I'm proud of you. Sometimes keeping it real, you can lose real things. Sometimes when you feel gutted, you always got to use positive experiences to come out that deep, dark hole, to prevail, to persevere. Not everybody going to keep it 10 toes down. You got to be solid. You got to remain you. That's one thing I'm still learning. Sometimes, this life can be lonely, where you got goals, you want to succeed, you got promises that you got to keep, and sometimes you eventually break. But one thing about it, never break yourself, because life is the best teacher. That's the old cliche. Life is the best teacher. Sometimes you can just keep it too real, then you lose everybody around you. That's one thing about it. When you got so much talent, sometimes people just take you for granted. Sometimes you can have enough, and then it don't seem like enough. That's why you always got to keep striving. Throughout my life, I always felt like the deck was always stacked against me. I did my best to survive those odds. And you know what? It made me a better person. Because sometimes when I feel the most gutted, throughout the most gutted experiences that I ever had in my life, I always turned it around to be positive. Whether it was through games, music, drawing, even my religion. Just remember, keeping it real means it's a possibility that you can lose real things. Somebody asked me a long time ago, how do I make my most heartfelt tracks? To be honest, I couldn't give that person an answer, because sometimes my most heartfelt tracks, it really just come from heartbreak. When it comes to heartbreak for me, I got a lot of L's under my belt. And sometimes, those deep feelings come back when I just want to pin my most recent situation or my past situations that I really tried to learn from, but I never did really learn from, So when it's time for me to rap on this mic, all those feelings come back. And it's just, I feel like I'm just a deep person, I wouldn't say like I'm overly emotional, but I know I'm emotional because I feel all those feelings that I always try to put in the back of my mind, but it always comes to the front when I'm trying to do this music and everything. So I just really couldn't give no answer. And sometimes, situations will have you, looking embarrassing and stuff, but, you just have to take those losses and move on. And I feel like when somebody say, have a good life and everything, I just feel like it all depends on like the person who's saying it too. It kind of feel like a slap to the face. But also, you got to realize that you got to be successful in everything that you do. I know it's easy said than done, but a lot of my most heartbreaks, it always turned into success for me because I know eventually, karma has to happen. And I always try to be on the right side of karma. And even when, I'm rapping and everything and I'm just in a different mode when I separate my real life and my musician life as my career and everything. So I just try to pen my most passionate lyrics and just lay them on the beat when I can. Or sometimes I would just write something in my memo pad on my phone or something like that, like an idea that I had, and then go back and revisit. And then when it's time for me to make this music, everything just comes flowing. That's why I like collaborating with my bro Tommy. We did so many tracks together. I feel like me and him, when it comes to making this R&B music and stuff, it's like we blend together so well because he understands my pain and I understand his pain. So either way, we just making good music. And we got a lot of R&B, music in our catalogs and everything that I hopped on, his R&B tracks, he hopped on mine, and we came together as a group, as a collective, put out a whole bunch of R&B music and stuff like that. Like my favorite R&B songs that I did, it's really hard to choose because, like I said, I don't go back and listen to those tracks anymore. I did when I first started, like 10 years ago, but I felt like I don't want to do that. I don't want to relive that pain again because, it's like deep wounds that I carry with me. And it's just some things that I know that I won't say, and I'm going to just take with me forever that'll last. And, even when I got this mic in front of me like I do right now, sometimes I just love to express that different pain, that passion, because I love putting passion in my music. And I feel like people can always relate to my passion. They can always relate to my pain because it's always going to be there. Like, I just remember the times when, before I even came back to this music, I feel like, what if I do this, do that, and it won't turn out right? It was a lot of what ifs. It was a lot of self-doubt, so much doubt. And I feel like when I didn't have nobody in my corner, I felt like I was in all this alone by myself. And that's what caused me to make better music as well. Because, people can see through the bullshit all day long. Like, when you're not passionate about your music, when you're not passionate about your goal, your success, or your drive that you want in life, people always going to write you off. But you got to remember, your self-confidence. Confidence is the biggest key to everything. And I will always remember that, because I remember those nights I was so depressed. My anxiety was bothering me. I didn't have nobody I can talk to. I was solo. But then I started listening to different beats and everything. And then I just started letting my pen take control. And when I let it take control, it was all done. It was all over. And I felt like I could do this for a career. I could do this for my passion. And I feel like, man, if it wasn't for music, I don't know where I would be. But I always felt like I would be, successful in anything that I did, because I got multiple talents. But sometimes, you stuck in this bullshit. It's like this maze feel like a bullshit sometimes. And, it's like you try to find your way out, but something always blocks you. It's like running through a damn maze. And for me, success is my biggest maze. Heartbreak is another maze for me. And I feel like as soon as I can crack those mazes, like I can make it through those mazes of being successful, a maze of haters, and then a maze of heartbreak. And, sometimes I feel like if I just conquer all those, what else would it be for me to conquer? And that's why I feel like love will always be something that I kind of just struggle with, because it's one thing of thinking that you'll find the right one day, but then it's always like in the back of your mind where it just tricks you to say, well, I'm used to being abandoned, I'm used to people leaving my side, and, it's basically the same thing. But, on the other side of the flip coin, it's like, you feel like, is this person really going to be there for me through the thick and thin? Is you going to be my ride or die? Sometimes the person that you think that's going to be a ride or die, they always end up, setting you up for failure. But you always got to stay motivated. And that's what I feel. I feel like I just got to stay motivated. Instead of me just trying to chase love, trying to find love and everything. Just chase the reason why I even started this music. Because I love this music. I love the music that I make. I love my fans. I love everything. That's why I feel with this documentary, it's really going to describe everything that I ever felt. Like every emotion, every determination, every confidence. Like sometimes it gets hard. It gets hard, when you're dealing with anxiety and everything. So like with anxiety, sometimes it can cause deep depression, and sometimes you feel like just giving up everything. But then you got to remember why the reason you had this drive and this passion. Because I can admit, like a lot of projects that I did, and then I submitted them off for distribution, or like even when I was on SoundCloud, I was posting them up. I fell back into a deep depression, and that depression almost held me back for good, because I was thinking around 2015, 2016, like what? And at that time, I was 14 mixtapes in. I was thinking, what is there for me to do? Because I wasn't making an album. An album was the furthest thing from my mind. And then when I started to get into the albums and everything, that's when it really started clicking for me. But then as I got up to like album 7, and then it's like my mixtape number 7, I felt like 7 always been perfection for me. Or sometimes 7 can be unlucky. It depends on how you look at it. But, so far I just feel like I'm still climbing. I'm still leveling up. And, as long as you remember that, to always level up through everything, like your pain, your frustration, your self-confidence, or lack of confidence, there's always something waiting on the other side as a reward for you. That's what's keeping me going. And sometimes you'll lose interest, and that's okay. It's okay to lose interest, but never lose your way. It's okay to switch what you want to do, like switch hobbies, switch careers, but never lose yourself, because yourself is what matters. Always choose you first. Never choose nobody else who's overlooking you, who's talking down on you, who's doubting you, who's hating on you, who's backstabbing, who's betraying you, all this and that. You got you. Always stay motivated. That's the biggest key. Yo, this sample flip is crazy. There's a storm coming. Okay. All right. Mic check. Mic check. Every day when I go outside, I see these bitch niggas hating on me. Bitch ass niggas, pussy ass niggas, they don't want the fade with me. I'm outside every day. I'm outside every day. I'm outside every day. I'm outside every day. Every day when I go outside, I see these bitch niggas hating on me. Bitch ass niggas, pussy ass niggas, they don't want the fade with me. I'm outside every day. I'm outside every day. I'm outside every day. I'm outside every day. Charge all the way up. I don't need no battery. Everybody is talking. Everybody is gossiping. I can't wait until the day I leave this bitch with your bitch. I'm the only nigga who's gonna pop from here. I'm the only nigga you not gonna start from here. I'm outside every day with my nigga. I can't. This is my new recording environment. I just fixed up my room attic a little bit. I added some plaques up in here. Delete some of them. I got my mics and everything. I got the lights. I got all the vibes up in here. I've been cooking up shit up in here for at least 4 years. At least 3 to 4 years. I got my lights. I got everything that I need. I'm coming with some new heat. Me and my bro too. I know this TikTok situation, it got me fucked up a little bit, but I'm going to bounce back, trust me. And everybody who been switching up on me, who been waiting for this time to happen, I got something for y'all too. Stay tuned. But enough about that. I got some new shit on the way. I can't wait to share it with y'all. I'm figuring out some new ways that I can be creative and shit. So stay tuned. I got something coming. Sometimes when you show off your accomplishments, you expect everybody to pat you on the back. My biggest problem always been proud of my accomplishments. But somehow, it always seemed like it was small. Like certain things, it sits with me. For 10 plus years, I always felt like I was just a big underdog in a small ocean. And what I mean by that, you just always have to believe in yourself when nobody else does. It's more easy said than done, because in my life, I've always had to deal with trials and tribulations. Trials and tribulations that could have made me weak in my life, but always gave me strength. Sometimes I've always been angry at myself. I've been frustrated at myself because I wanted things my way. I thought everybody would root for me, but it turns out to be the total opposite. When I started this music journey, I was 14 years old. It was something that I've always seen myself doing. Even with sports, sports was always lingering in the back of my mind. My dad and I didn't always have a close relationship. But then when I eventually talked to him, he always wanted me to be an athlete. He always stayed on me about playing football, doing football things, trying to push for a football scholarship and everything. My time never came. Due to personal reasons, I stepped away from football. I had a dream of being an artist. I've always liked to sketch. I've always liked to be artistic with my drawing and everything. That never happened either. Although I always came close to a drawing scholarship, that didn't work either. So when everything came full circle for me, all I had was music. Music was always something that I grew up listening to. It was always around the house. I wrote this in my book, Before the Music, the documentary. I wrote about how it inspired me. I've always wanted to be a beatboxer. I was good at beatboxing. You know, at the time, when I had friends, they always wanted me to beatbox and everything. Just play the background. But I always knew I was a good writer because I always felt like I was a poet. And then when I started to write on paper how I was feeling, I never really knew what it was. I just always knew that people could connect with it. And when I started getting better at it, I started practicing more writing techniques and writing styles. Everybody was telling me to be a musician. Do it that way. It seemed like at the time, everybody embraced me because they thought I had a true, genuine talent. And a lot of times I used to just beat up on myself. I was always so hard on myself because I was afraid to lose. And me being afraid to lose, with the ups and the downs and the tribulations in my life, I've always seemed to manage to lose it all anyway. Because DC, he's my alter ego. When I step away from this mic, when I step away from this pad, and I face reality, Darian is what DC wants to be. And I know that sounds confusing because Darian, he wishes that he was everything that DC was. Outside of music, I was always looking for validation. You know, I was always running from my problems. I thought music can solve them. It did. But I noticed each time that I step away from this music stuff, step away from my passion, my dream, my personal life was a wreck. I just moved into this new house, me and my mom. I was in the public housing system for years. Never told nobody about it. Although some knew, but the rest didn't. I thank God every day that I was finally able to move out the hood. Like I said in my song, Lost Invitation, not too many people was happy for me and my mom. I accepted that. I knew what it was. Because I was always thinking, if people didn't ever cheer me on about my music, they would never cheer me on about finally moving out the hood. It's a hurting thing. It really is. Because those times that I was always there for people, I thought they would have my back. At the same time, they was always sticking a bigger knife inside my back. Now, when it comes to relationships, heartbreak, or the other stuff, my heart was the only thing that was getting stabbed. A lot of times it could have turned me cold. There was a lot of times I didn't want to be humble. There was a lot of times that I prayed that I wish that all the love was going out my soul, it was going out my spirit. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. A lot of people would consider me a real nice, humble guy. But when I get on that microphone, it's like I turn vicious. You know, Darian has always been nice, sweet, kind, loving, humble. DC wasn't always that. And I always felt like that could separate my personal life from my musical career, my musical dream. But at the same time, people still have me misunderstood. A lot of times I thought about retirement. Because I've never been the person to constantly validate people or just even want validation at some points in my career. It just seemed like my personal life, my dream was always clashing together. It just seemed like I could never find that good balance. I've had a lot of close friends, a very few best friends. And now that I don't have those people in my life anymore, sometimes it can feel lonely, but not too much lonely, because I've always been an introvert. I wasn't always the person that I am. I've always been quiet, played the background, let everybody do their thing, and I was just cool with it. But it was one person that told me, they said never be too humble, because humble turns into disrespect. And while I was playing the background, some people was asking me, how come you can't speak up for yourself? Why are you too humble? I thought about that plenty of times. And when it was time for me to rap, do my thing with this music, a whole nother side came out of me that I personally never thought I had. I've been doing this since 2012. I didn't start making mixtapes and full music projects to 2015. I miss those times for real. You know, a lot of times I sit back and I think, what if I would have went to college? If I knew music was going to be like this, I could have just got a audio engineer degree. I could have chose something else real different in my life. But at the same time, I didn't want to feel like that I was giving up on those people who were supporting me. And when I felt like that, that's when they was giving up on me. A lot of things used to eat at my conscience. When I was trying to provide a better living environment, for me and my mom and everything, a lot of things used to eat at me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think, I couldn't eat. Until we got out the hood, got out the projects and everything. A lot of people was looking down on me and my mom for all these years. I almost didn't graduate. I almost dropped out of school. That definitely would have hurt me even more. Because during that time, I was real determined to prove everybody wrong. Flash forward 10 years later, I'm still stuck in that mindset. I've always felt like too many people never believed in me. And it cuts like a knife. It really does. But I just constantly got to stay motivated. Now that I'm in these stocks and everything too, I just invested in some of my favorite companies too. Not too many people support me in that area either. And this whole time I just been thinking, maybe I'm a sucker for support. Maybe I'm a sucker for everybody's love. It really hurts. It really does. Because I shouldn't have to search for love. I shouldn't have to search for support. I know my mom supported me. I know with this music stuff, it haven't been easy for neither one of us. It was a lot of lonely nights. A lot of frustration nights. A lot of bitter nights for me. 10 years, 10 seasons, 10 nights. I could say it was never for nothing. I really think so, that but I have all these fans around the world, globally. And now that I saw TikTok trying to mess with my music, trying to shadow ban me, all because of a hater, I agree, I admit, it set me back a couple times. A lot of those moments that I had to think about myself, I'm really all that I got. It's like I seen everybody for who they is. I took so many L's in friendships. I took plenty L's in relationships. Sometimes you just want that one person to support you. Like a close friend, best friend, significant other, just to cheer you on. Sometimes I think about maybe that day won't happen. Or you can always have somebody that's close to you that you tell all your dreams to, you tell all your secrets to, most of your secrets, because you feel like you can trust that person. You tell this person your accomplishments, your goals, your dreams, thinking they will support you. All the time, they won't even lend you a hand. I've been in plenty of relationships like that. Right now I'm independent. I had a situation back in 2021 with this independent label. They had a connection to Sony Music. Now they don't want to pay me for my music. So that just leave me on the cliffhanger. It's like you basically hanging by a thread. But now that I'm back to really being independent, I thought I was out of here. I thought I was out the hood. I thought I was out the city. That never happened either. I didn't let that disappoint me. I just let that fuel me. Because a lot of my music still is not accepted. My beat's not accepted. No, it's a real humbling experience for me. But I get it. That I'm not everybody's favorite musician. I won't give up. I won't back down. All I know is that I'm waiting to the right situation. I'm waiting to maybe somebody can pick me up on a roster, because I know what I bring to the table. There's always a few people that I keep in mind when I'm making my music. A lot of them was my biggest supporters, which eventually turned haters. That always happens. I just need time to figure all this out. Give my brand a rebrand. And figure out something else from here. But I really do hope and pray that I get into a better situation.
Every day when I wake up, I think about those times I never had time for you. I was on a victory chase and I might lose the race. Even when I lose it all, I still have you in my corner. You said this will be a long journey for me. You ain't lied about it. I want to be the son that you can be proud of. I went against your wishes, but that was for me to test the waters I'm trying to swim out of. I'm living through your years because I know I'm not going to reach a decade. The doctors is misdiagnosing, our haters is misdirected. I will never forget the talks that we had. I'm appreciating you while you still here. I'm still listening to your wisdom. It don't go in one ear and out the other. I know how many people mistreated us because we wanted to live according to the Bible. People still laugh at us. When I said I was coming home, I really meant when I was done rapping about our struggles and tribulations. I'm switching back to gospel because my soul is pure. My soul ain't a saint. Every day it gets harder for me to find my purpose. Every day it gets harder for me to keep on pushing. Every day it gets harder for me to deal with anxiety. Every day it gets harder. Every day it gets harder for me to find my purpose. Every day it gets harder for me to keep on pushing. Every day it gets harder for me to deal with anxiety. I write this poem to the city out of my flesh and blood. You get snooze on me, I'ma be the nightmare alarm to wake you up. I don't care about the new rapper on the block. I will bar him up in the booth, then I throw away his fans with the key. I ain't no correctional officer, but you better come correct. If you thinking about being the top 5, I'll pick apart your first 3. This is attractive.